Hello, everybody. This is Austin again from the Review Roundtable, joined by my guests David Weiser and Jacob Suggs. It's great to have you guys back here. Um, Today, we're going to be going through our top 20 films of the decade. You guys ready for this?
Oh
Yes,
yeah, I'm
I am
looking forward to
absolutely
it.
ready.
Jacob may or may not have come up with this very last.
Yeah. Okay. Funny story. I may or may not have gotten things mixed up with another podcast episode and listing in general. So these picks may or may not be, 20 films that I thought about, in like a 30-minute span as to how much I appreciate them of the previous decade. But hopefully, I won't say anything I regret. I think I've got some pretty solid picks, and I think that I'm not going to regret anything too bad because I feel like I haven't really left out anything too significant. But we'll see. If I remember something else, I'll be sure to mention it. But
Yeah.
I think I'm okay.
Whereas with my list, I've been prepping for this for like a week, and so like on my sheet of paper, I've got like scribbles and arrows and shit, and I've kept on like switching it up. But I feel pretty confident with what I got right now. But before we head into our top 20 films of the decade, we're each going to rattle off our honorable mentions of the decade, the films that we still really loved, but just kind of barely missed. I'll start us out. I have quite a few, so just for time's sake, I'm just going to rattle them off. I'm not going to talk in depth on them, but some films that I love from the decade that I just couldn't included in no particular order: Logan, The Shape of Water, Get Out, Dunkirk, Whiplash, Straight Outta Compton, Black Klansman, The Social Network, Her, Boyhood, Avengers Endgame, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Bad Times at the El Royale, Black Panther, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Phantom Thread, 22 Jump Street, The Revenant, Creed, Call Me By Your Name, the John Wick trilogy, Drive, Hacksaw Ridge, and Star Wars The Force Awakens. So, David, your honorable mentions, go.
Um, so I may accident. I'm looking at a different list, so I'm gonna try not to accidentally overlap, but I might accidentally rattle something off that's actually on my list. We'll find out soon. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2. The other guys, we need to talk about Kevin, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Captain America the First Avenger, X-Men First Class, The Artist, Warhorse, Super 8, Skyfall, The Avengers, Moonrise Kingdom, Wreck-It Ralph, Enemy, Her, Inside Llewyn Davis, Grand Budapest Hotel, Captain America the Winter Soldier, X-Men Days of Future Past, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Ex Machina, Whiplash, How to Train Your Dragon 2, and How to Train Your Dragon 3. The Lego Movie, Big Hero 6, Creed, The Revenant, Inside Out, Manchester by the Sea, Swiss Army Man, Baby Driver Logan, Shape of Water, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Eighth Grade, The Favorite, The Irishman, 1917, and Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker.
Nice list. Jacob, you're up.
Alrighty. My honorable mentions are Brigsby Bear, Paddington 2, Kong Skull Island, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Tron Legacy, Mad Max Fury Road, The Great Gatsby, Star Wars The Force Awakens, The Avengers, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Batman v Superman's Ultimate Edition, Doctor Strange, Skyfall, Toy Story 3 and 4, all three Captain America films are just so good. All of the new Planet of the Apes films, especially Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, the Lego Movie, Swiss Army Man, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and Mission Impossible Fallout, Game Night, Logan, Prometheus and Alien Covenant, Inception, Super 8, Baby Driver, Green Room, Blue Ruin, Colossal, Free Fire, Good Time, Uncut Gems, It Comes at Night, Hereditary and Midsommar, Creep and Creep 2, Searching, 1917, Annihilation, A Quiet Place, Thoroughbreds, Eighth Grade, Moonlight, Lean on Pete, Thunder Road, Overlord, Widows, Get Out and Us, Unsane, and so many more that I'm not going to mention because there's way too many.
You guys are making my list look fucking weak. And also, I forgot a lot on my honorable mentions. Yeah. That was a huge list. Was that like 50 movies?
That was like 45, almost 50.
I love it. I love it. All right. Now that our honorable mentions are out of the way, we're going to segue into our top 20 films of the decade. So structurally, how we're going to do this is we're each going to go from our 20th pick to our 11th. We'll circle around. We'll come back from 10 to 2, and then we'll each go through our number 1 picks, kind of build more suspense that way. So starting with my number 20 of the decade is The Wolf of Wall Street. Love this movie from Martin Scorsese. I think Leonardo DiCaprio gives one of his best performances yet. It's a 3-hour epic that you just don't feel the runtime for. It's a zany movie. You wonder if all of this shit is actually real, and if you do your research, it is. And it's just a hell of a time, and it's just a huge flex on Scorsese's part. Absolutely love this movie. So 19th pick is probably my favorite comedy of the decade, probably the funniest movie I saw this decade, in my opinion. I think it's really underseen and underappreciated, is The Nice Guys. Shane Black delivers, I think, my favorite comedy of the decade. Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling are just a match made in heaven together, and Ryan Gosling gives one of the best comedic performances. I think the scene especially where he falls from the roof and he's like tumbling down the hill, and then he lands at a tree next to a Robert Downey Jr. corpse with his face shot to hell. His reaction to it as he's lighting a cigarette and he looks over is fucking comedic gold. Love this movie. So number 18 is a filmmaker we're going to see a couple of times on this list. That's Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained. It's a bit of an imperfect movie. It might go maybe 10 minutes too long, but I still love this classic Western. Leonardo DiCaprio steals the show in a supporting role, but Jamie Foxx and Christoph Waltz are incredible in this movie. Christoph Waltz has won 2 Academy Awards under his filmography with Quentin Tarantino, once in Inglourious Basterds and once again in this movie. And amazing screenplay, amazing direction, and captivating performances, and a lot of great dark comedy. So moving to my number 17th pick is the Best Picture winning Moonlight. Barry Jenkins, just an absolute stunner of a movie that he directed here about this tale of Chiron. It's told in 3 parts, with his youth, his adolescence, his teenage years, and once again as he's an adult. This man kind of going through growing up. There's more to it than that, but it's told beautifully, an amazing script, amazing cinematography, and an awesome score from Nicholas Britell. This is a visual feast. It's filmmaking at its finest. And yeah, you absolutely shouldn't miss Moonlight. So my number 16th pick is 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. A bit of a controversial movie, but I don't think it deserves it. There's definitely dark subject matter, but I think Martin McDonagh handles it in such a good way. It's an amazing script. It features an insane ensemble cast of Frances McDormand, who I think gives her best performance yet. Just an unbelievable, emotionally savage performance. Also, you've got Woody Harrelson turns in one of his best performances, I think, as well as Sam Rockwell, who fucking knocks it out of the park. Sam Rockwell has been in a huge hot streak in supporting roles recently. I can go on about this movie, but it has one of my favorite screenplays and some of the most memorable dialogue I think I've heard in a movie this decade. So my number 15th pick is a movie that admittedly isn't perfect, but I'm never going to forget the first time I saw this movie in a theater, and that's Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. Yeah, this is just an emotionally, just an incredible movie. I think visually it's on another level, a bit of an ode to 2001, but with his own creative take on it. Nolan gives some of the most powerful imagery that I've seen in a movie this decade, and Hans Zimmer is at the top of his game. Hans Zimmer delivers a mind-melting score that's huge and gargantuan, but at the same time very intimate. And the emotional stakes of this movie are always at the forefront. Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey give great performances as well. So my number 14th pick, kind of sticking in the sci-fi lane, is Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. Denis Villeneuve is easily one of my favorite filmmakers working today, and Arrival is just a mind-melting masterpiece that, upon rewatch, you really see all of the sharper hidden details of how the narrative is crafted. Certain reveals later make a little bit more sense in retrospect. Amy Adams is amazing. Jeremy Renner, an amazing ensemble cast, and it's not your typical alien invasion movie. It's a smart thriller. It's not an action invasion movie. It's just a smart, well-told, captivating thriller with relevant themes. Um, so my number 13th pick is actually one from 2019. It's a bit recent. That's Uncut Gems. The Safdie brothers deliver just an incredible movie. I talked about it in our top 10 list, but Adam Sandler gives my favorite performance I've ever seen of him. And again, this movie is just a mile a minute, and your heart will be bursting out of your chest by the time this movie ends, and it delivers a whopper of a finale. This movie's awesome. So my number 12 pick is War for the Planet of the Apes. Might be a hot take, but I think this is the best of the trilogy. I know Dawn is a lot of people's favorite, and I like Rise, love Dawn, adore War. I think the editing of this movie moves at just the right pace. I'm telling you, if you haven't seen this movie, I think this is just textbook filmmaking. Matt Reeves is one of my favorite directors working today, and Andy Serkis gives such an emotional performance as Caesar, and the final moments of this movie had me crying both times I saw it in the theater. Just remarkable movie with amazing action and cinematography, but the great emotional stakes as well.
I'm glad to know that someone else, not to interrupt, but I'm glad to know that someone else also loved War, and that it's also their favorite in the trilogy.
So underrated. Love it.
So good.
So going to my 11th pick, another recent movie from 2019. Again, the recency effect maybe factors in just a little bit, but that's Marriage Story. Again, this is one of the most amazing looks at just relationships between a couple, but it's very authentic. You always believe it. And Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, literally, if you look up acting in the dictionary, you're going to see their faces because they give some of the best performances I've maybe ever seen in a movie. They're just so believable, and nothing about it does not feel authentic. You know, it's one of my favorites from 2019, and it's really left an emotional mark on me. So those are my 20 through 11 picks. David, what are yours?
So I tried to represent each year of the decade. I wound up having to leave out 2011. So this first one is one I saw more recently for the first time, but I really loved it. Francis Ha, a great Baumbach picture on the subject of Marriage Story. I just really like this movie. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it because we're going to have to go through 19 more. But I really like the black and white aesthetic. Greta Gerwig's very good in it. She gives a very like lackadaisical kind of performance. So yeah, I really like Francis Ha. 19 is going to be Sing Street. This movie has a soundtrack full of bangers, and they're all original songs, and it's a great romantic coming of age movie. As it's just very it's like one of the greatest feel good movies of the decade, in my opinion, and I really love this movie. It's resonated with me ever since I saw it for the first time and discovered it, and I've loved introducing people to it ever since. Number 18 is Snowpiercer, Bong Joon-ho's first American production, which is similar to Parasite in some regards, in regards to social commentary that it provides. Chris Evans is very good in it. Bong Joon-ho, great filmmaker, you know. So yeah, we're gonna move on to number 17. We have Looper, Stan Ryan Johnson, and yeah, this is a great time travel movie. It uses it in such an interesting way, and it's very I don't know, it shows a lot of Ryan's strengths as a filmmaker, And I just really love this movie again. I think it's very well made, and it's pretty emotional. Uses time travel very interesting. Number 16 is Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. Great. I love how it's all filmed as though it's one take. I like that we're seeing this actor kind of coming to terms with a lot of his legacy in regards to his role that's kind of shadowed over him, and how it kind of Michael Keaton's own personal life is kind of used as inspiration to a degree. I mean, like he did the Batman movies, and then he kind of had to break out of that past, and this is a very similar kind of echoes that. And I really love Alejandro Iñárritu's work, and so yeah, Birdman's cool movie. Great. Then 15 is one that Austin mentioned, The Wolf of Wall Street, which is just absolutely insane. Leonardo DiCaprio is incredible in this. Like this is very off the charts, energetic, and just it's so crazy.
I'm not fucking leaving.
Yeah. Martin Scorsese, one of the all-time greats. It's so crazy that he did this at his age, and yeah, it's a banger. Number 14, Inception from Christopher Nolan. Very original, cool, and phenomenal concept. Probably one of the most interesting like sci-fi action movies of the decade. Especially in terms of originality. Very curious to see what he does with Tenet. It looks similar in some regards. So yeah, I mean, everything's been said about Inception already. So now number 13, I have How to Train Your Dragon, the first one. Really love this movie. The animation holds up very well. I rewatched it prior to seeing the third one earlier last year, not this year. And it's very emotional. John Powell's score is remarkable. And it's one of my favorite animated movies, especially the last decade. Number 12 is Star Wars The Force Awakens, a movie that means so much to me because it's kind of something I'd waited my whole life to see. Ever since being introduced to the original trilogy, I always wondered, will there be an episode 7? And then when I heard that it was being made in production, I was just bewildered. I was just like, this is crazy. This is awesome. I'm very excited. I really liked the sequel trilogy a lot. This was a great beginning to things. Even though, I think the criticism of it homaging A New Hope is a little over. Like, I think there's so much more to it than that. But I'm not going to get into that because that's just going to make this podcast go way too long. But yeah, it's a very energetic, well-paced, fun Star Wars movie. Lays a great foundation for the trilogy. So then on number 11, I have Mission Impossible Fallout. One of my favorite action movie ever made. This movie is an absolute wild ride. And Tom Cruise is doing the most insane stuff. And Christopher McQuarrie is an absolute legend. And so, yeah, this is cinema. And I'm sure Martin Scorsese would agree.
All right, Jacob.
Okay. So my number 20 is actually Chronicle. I'm actually a pretty big fan of found footage films that are done right. I've been watching a ton of them recently, and whenever they're done in a really effective way and do something like really creative and kind of branch out, that always fascinates me because I really love stories that have a big story told in a small way. Hence reasons why I love films like Cloverfield and The Blair Witch Project and similar kind of styled films. Both Chronicle, it's just so unique to me that Josh Trank was able to kind of like tell this story and utilize the found footage genre in a way to kind of like make a superhero, almost a super villain origin story through the found footage kind of lens. I'm not a big fan of Max Landis at all, but his screenplay here is the best thing he's written ever. I don't like his other stuff, but Chronicle really, really struck a chord with me. And every time I watch it, I just find something else to love about it. I think that all the performances are great. Even Dane DeHaan, who I'm not usually crazy about either, gave a really great performance here. Michael B. Jordan, I love that guy. I think he's great, and I think that he really shines in that film as well. But they also do a lot of cool, unique things with the camera, to where it's like, because they have powers, they can make the camera float. And it just kind of like, it creates angles that you wouldn't traditionally see in these types of films. So to me, it just really stood out a lot, and I really like it. Josh Trank, I really need you to make another movie that I love, because, man, I don't want to talk about Fantastic Four. My number 19 is also The Nice Guys, Austin. So I agree. I love The Nice Guys so much. My friend Ben told me about it, and I'll never forget it. For months, Ben was just like, Jacob, you have to watch this movie with me. You're going to love it. You're going to really enjoy it. You need to watch it. And I put it off for so long. And when I finally watched it with him, I fell in love with it. It's just such a quirky, fun, awesome, unapologetically Shane Black movie. You just feel him throughout that entire movie. And it just seems like a movie that was a blast to make. I love it so much, from the aesthetic to just how fast-paced it is.
It's also got a banger of a soundtrack.
It does. I was just about to bring that up. It's so good. Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe kill it in that movie. My number 18 is actually The Grand Budapest Hotel. Nobody makes movies like Wes Anderson does. I love Wes Anderson so much. There's not a film by him that I dislike. And The Grand Budapest Hotel, I almost put higher. I have another Wes Anderson film that's higher. That's actually my favorite by him. But The Grand Budapest Hotel, I wish I would have seen it in theaters, but I really love this film so much. It's so quirky and fun, and also just really, really sincere and unapologetically Wes Anderson. And I love The Grand Budapest Hotel a lot. At number 17, I actually have Interstellar. I really love this movie. I know that a lot of people kind of flip-flop with it, to where some people really love it. Some people are like, it's not like top tier Christopher Nolan. But for me, it is. Hans Zimmer's score will just forever be burned in my brain from this film. The cinematography in this film is just breathtaking. I've never seen space portrayed in a way that Interstellar portrays space, and kind of like the broadness and size and scale of it. And I just think it's absolutely remarkable what Christopher Nolan was able to do by really sticking with science and real life facts and crafting, his vision for this film. But it's not even just space. The stuff on Earth I really like as well, with Jessica Chastain. And I really love how they kind of, I can't explain why, but I really love how they kind of incorporate farming and kind of like the countryside of Earth into like space exploration and stuff like that. And that kind of being the key in the bridge to getting us kind of away from Earth to rebuild and kind of like find a new home. And I think that it's just a really great film. My number 16 is 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Like you said, Austin, controversial film. I don't think it deserves all the controversy that it gets by any means. The score for this film is so good. It was my favorite Best Picture nom of 2017. I believe it was the year it came out. And it really, really stuck with me after watching it. And the score is very good. All the performances are great. Even Peter Dinklage is pretty solid in that film. I like Peter Dinklage a lot, and he did really good in that film as well. Sam Rockwell also does a very good job in that film. And I really love 3 Billboards. There's a lot of stuff that I want to say about it, but why would I say all that when I could just tell you how much I love it and how much I appreciate it? So there's that. Number 15 is a movie that's right up my alley. I love Bad Times at the El Royale.
Yes.
I think it's awesome. From the first teaser that I saw, I was hooked because I love Drew Goddard, because the man is the man that I want to be. He wrote Cloverfield, which is just one of my favorite movies ever, if anybody knows me. And I also love The Cabin in the Woods. The Cabin in the Woods is a damn fine movie that I really love a lot. And it's so good. So the fact that like he was also able to kind of write and direct this film it really just shows how talented he is. And all of the performances in this film, again, are just really, really great. I love the score and the aesthetic and the symbolism. I love all of the characters. I love how it keeps you guessing the entire time. And there's twists and turns. And it's a lot more of a slow burn than I initially thought it would be going into it. But it actually worked in the movie's favor. Dakota Johnson is so good in that movie. John Hamm is also great. Everyone is so good in this movie, and there's so many great things that I love about Bad Times at the El Royale. But oh man, it's just so good. Number 14 is a film that I saw last summer for the first time, and it's actually Nocturnal Animals. Nocturnal Animals is directed by Tom Ford, the fashion designer, but is somehow so great. The score for this film, I listen to it all the time when I'm driving by myself or studying. It's so, so good. All the performances, Jake Gyllenhaal, Amy Adams, everything is so good about it. And even the cinematography, just the way the film looks. And the way that the film's narrative is a story within a story is also really fascinating to me on a writing level. And I really think they pulled it off well. I love it so much. I'm going to say that pretty much after every single one, by the way, because I do. Number 13, The Force Awakens, like you said, David, is a film that really means a lot to me, and I'll never forget seeing it on opening night and the hype and all of that. But my number 13 is actually The Last Jedi, which is one of my favorite films ever. When talking about it, because I feel like I've tweeted every single thought I've ever had.
I think David has a pretty good essay on his YouTube page that sums up my feelings as well.
Well, thank you. But there's so much that I've already said about it. I love the sequel trilogy. I love all the Star Wars movies. I'm one of those weird people. But The Last Jedi is my second favorite one, right behind Empire. I think it's just an incredible, incredible film. And I think that the hate for it is so unwarranted. And I think that the discourse that it created is also really unwarranted. But that's just my opinion. It's cool if you don't like it. I guess I understand how somebody couldn't like it. But at the same time, I love it. I think it's great. And I wish more people could be respectful about other people's opinions about that particular film. But I love it a lot. Ryan Johnson, you're one of my heroes if you happen to be listening to this. And my number 12 of the year is Parasite. I mentioned this in my top 10 of my favorites of last year in that podcast episode, but I'm going to mention it again here because Parasite, I went into it completely blind, not knowing what to expect, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really, really great, and I don't want to say too much about it because I feel like going in blind is the best possible way to do that. So, yeah.
All right, so bringing it back to my number 10 pick. So David already mentioned this one. This is one of my all-time favorite movies, and that's Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. Alejandro Inarritu, just a true stunner of a movie that he delivers here. The directing, the editing, how it's all edited to appear as if it's one long continuous take. I think that was the first time it had ever happened, that technique back then. We see it again recently with 1917, of course, but it's done on a much smaller scale in Birdman, minus a few sequences. But what I love about it is Michael Keaton, I think, was absolutely shafted for the Best Actor Oscar. I think he 100% deserved it, and that's no talking shit to Eddie Redmayne because he's great in The Theory of Everything, but Michael Keaton rips out his fucking heart for that movie. He puts everything into that performance because, again, like David mentioned, he taps into so much of his own life and his own experiences in that movie. And Emma Stone's amazing in a supporting role, just all of it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And Edward Norton is just Edward Norton in that movie. So my number 9 pick is also one of my favorite action films of all time. That's Mad Max Fury Road. George Miller, man. He is in his late 70s, and he delivers just a gonzo, bananas, nonstop action ride that has a heart and soul, and it tells the best story out of any film in the Mad Max series while also doubling down on the best action in the whole series. It's amazing that he takes like this 30-year hiatus between Beyond Thunderdome and this movie, and you would think, it might be okay. We'll see. But it just blows the other movies out of the water, which is high praise because Road Warrior is a classic, especially. Tom Hardy surprisingly takes a backseat to Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron fucking owns this movie. She's so amazing in it. I love the story of it. It's so powerful. And again, it's not a very dialogue-driven movie, but it's an action-oriented movie. It's very minimalist in its approach, but it's so, so powerful. Love it. So my number 8 pick is Inception. This is my favorite Christopher Nolan film. He really began the decade off right. This came back out in 2010. Such an influential movie, especially with the trailers, with the boing sound effect that we would always hear forever in trailers and in movies. Hans Zimmer, some of his best work to date as well. Leonardo DiCaprio was amazing as Dom Cobb. His character in this movie, it's like an onion. You're unpeeling these layers as the film goes on. And one other thing that I love about this movie is that it kind of defies like normal storytelling structure, because this movie is almost entirely constant exposition, and normally too much exposition is a no-no in films, but I think this film uses it with advantage because you're always uncovering new information, because this is a special circumstance. You're always uncovering new information, but it's always interesting, always works, and the action set pieces are fantastic. The rotating hallway set is forever iconic. Enough said. So my number 7 pick is also, I think, one of the best action films ever made. It's already been mentioned. That is Mission Impossible Fallout. This is easily, in my opinion, the best entry of the franchise. Rogue Nation's right behind it, in my opinion. But yeah, Christopher McQuarrie is an absolute legend. Him and Tom Cruise need to keep on making movies together, which they are, because they're making 2 more of these movies. I'm very happy about that. Tom Cruise is just a fucking madman doing the most amazing stunts ever. I don't know how he's doing it, and he broke his ankle on this movie, and they don't shy away from it. You can clearly see it. It's amazing. Some of the best cinematography of the whole franchise. Every action set piece is so awesome, from the bathroom fight that is insane, all the way down to the chase in Europe and in France, I think, right? And then the finale in the snow-capped mountains is just amazing. Amazing. I think it's the best entry in the franchise. So my number 6 pick is Parasite. I think this is the best film of 2019. Again, I've already talked about it in that other podcast episode, but how Bong Joon-ho so deftly incorporates like the social commentary between the rich and the poor, amazing character development, and focus on real life issues. Again, this is I think should win Best Picture at the Oscars this year. We'll see if it does. I hope Bong can at least maybe get a Best Director Oscar out of it. But yeah, this movie's amazing. Definitely see it. So my number 5 pick is actually Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now, that is not a contradiction, because on the other list, our top 10 list, I have Parasite over Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And that's true, because I think it's a better movie. But on this list, I'm starting to get into just my favorites, the movies that I'm going to revisit over and over again. And even though Parasite is a better movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood just means that much more to me. The way that this film takes place in this shifting cultural landscape of the film industry in 1969, the incredible production design, the amazing performances. Brad Pitt just gives a performance for the ages. Oh my God, the last half hour of this movie, I'm never going to forget. And it has one of my favorite needle drops of the decade with Vanilla Fudge's You Keep Me Hanging On. Amazing killer soundtrack in this movie. And just what it means to me, just as somebody who loves filmmaking and the whole process of it, it's just immeasurable. And it's my second favorite Tarantino movie. So going to my number 4th pick, this is, I think, the best musical of the decade. And it's also, in my opinion, the best musical of all time. That's La La Land. I fucking adore this movie. I love Damien Chazelle. He's one of my favorite filmmakers between this, Whiplash, and First Man. But this is my favorite. Again, when this movie came out, I was graduating high school, and I felt like I was in the prime like target in a way of this film, of what it's the messages of like, these young people in LA who are trying to figure out their lives, and how their relationship at times, they might have to sacrifice the relationship at times for the sake of their career, just figuring all that out. And it's somebody who had really large dreams of what they wanted to do in their life. This movie on a thematic level really resonated with me, and just the songs, oh my god, songs are amazing. I listen to the soundtrack so much. I haven't seen it in a while, so I need to revisit it. But Damien Chazelle's best actor, best director win is so well deserved. Love how he directs all of these different musical sequences, and yeah, Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are incredible singers, but incredible actors. Don't miss La La Land. So my number 3 pick. Now, if I have to be as objective as possible, this might be the best film of the decade in my opinion. But number 2 and number 1 above this just mean a little bit more to me. They're movies I visit just a little bit more. But if you talk to me about the best film of the decade, I think it's probably Blade Runner 2049. Yeah. Blade Runner 2049 is the rare sequel that is better than the original, in my opinion. Denis Villeneuve, who was also on this list for Arrival, and also directed Prisoners and Enemy, fantastic movies. This guy's on another fucking level. Oh my god, I cannot wait for Dune. This guy is reinventing the science fiction genre, in my opinion. His attention to detail and the way he's able to craft these really amazing narratives. Blade Runner 2049 is a movie that's definitely a slow build, but absolutely benefits from that. The way the story is, the way it builds, the editing. Roger Deakins' cinematography is amazing in this movie, and I think this is a movie for the ages. If you're at all interested in filmmaking, in the process of it, and just how narratives come together in storytelling, I think Blade Runner 2049 needs to be at the top of your list. This is a movie for any movie lover. I love it to death, and it might just be the best of the decade, in my opinion. And also, this movie came out in 2017, and oh my god, 2017 was literally the best year for movies this decade, in my opinion. So many movies from 2017 made this list, and it's just like, it blew all the other years out of the water, in my opinion. So my number 2 pick, maybe not as good as of a movie, but a movie that means more to me on just a personal level, also came out in 2017, and that is Edgar Wright's Baby Driver. Daddy Edgar delivers, one of my favorite movies of all time, even. I absolutely love this concept. Somebody who absolutely adores music. I listen to music every fucking day, all day, and this notion of soundtracking your life, the way that Ansel Elgort's character Baby is listening to music as he's going about his day or accomplishing these larger than life heists. It's just amazing, but it's so well done. But the action, the script, so many amazing one-liners. This is one of the most quotable scripts of the decade, in my opinion. Again, as somebody that loved Edgar Wright, this might be my favorite of his. And once again, one of my favorite needle drops of the decade is in the diner. Barry White's Never Never Gonna Give You Up might just be my favorite needle drop of the decade. I love all of the music, but again, this movie just means so much to me. I saw it 6 times in theaters, which is my record. I have never seen a movie that many times in theaters. Don't know if I'm ever going to replicate that, but Baby Driver, I love it to death. Talked really fast. Take time. But David, what are your picks?
So quite a few of these have been mentioned already. So I'm going to start with one that's been mentioned on both of your lists already. Interstellar, as has been said, it's a incredible space movie. Christopher Nolan knocked it out of the park. Dude is a legend, and his filmmaking is just on another level. Hans Zimmer's score, you have Matthew McConaughey's performance, you got like Jessica Chastain, Casey Affleck, Michael Caine, Anne Hathaway. I mean, it's very emotional. And Timothy Chalamet, he was in this too. Yeah, it's very emotional. The scale and spectacle of it never overshadows the emotional core. And yeah, it's great space movie about love and all that jazz. So number 9, is another one that's been mentioned, is Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. As I said already, it's a cerebral or alien invasion movie of sorts. I love that it's all about language, and there's this kind of anyways, the way it deals with like chronology and stuff, and it's just a brilliant film. Amy Adams is unreal. Johan Johansson, his score, may he rest in peace. I love his score. Great film. Love everything it has to say. The themes. Yeah. So number 8 is one that you may not have seen yet because it hasn't released wide technically till next month. It's Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This movie is a masterpiece. It's one of the most intoxicating and compelling romance movies I've seen all this entire decade. Just go see it. It's a French film, but even if don't let that language barrier stop you.
As Bong Joon-ho wisely said.
Yeah. So number 7, we got Toy Story 3. This is probably one of the ones on my list that has made me cry more than anything else. And it is a fantastic trilogy capper, capping what is probably one of the best trilogies ever made. But yeah, it's a great film. One of Pixar's best, my favorite Pixar film, actually. And so, yeah. Then we have Parasite, which has also been mentioned by my peers already, at number 6. And like they said, it's best to go in blind. Bong Joon-ho has made an incredible film about social class structure and the differences between them. Great cast who just won a SAG for Best Ensemble. And hopefully it'll upset 1917 for Best Picture, but we'll see.
Let's go.
Phenomenal film.
So too.
Phenomenal film. South Korean masterpiece. There we go. Number 5, another one that was just mentioned by Austin, is Blade Runner 2049. Another one from Denis Villeneuve. Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfish's score is one of my favorites of that year. This film is just astounding on so many levels. Just on a purely technical level alone, there's so much in this that is just unreal. And of course, you have Roger Deakins' cinematography, and then Harrison Ford is great, as well as Ana de Armas and Ryan Gosling, who is probably my favorite actor of the decade, at least up there with Adam Driver.
Same.
And so, yeah, it's just all around great legacy sequel. The fact they managed to pull this off 40 years or so after the original Blade Runner is a true achievement. And the fact it was as great as it was. Denis Villeneuve, can't wait to see Dune, like Austin said. I don't want to spend too much longer talking about this, but great film, great sequel. Number 4 is First Man. Man, do I love Damien Chazelle. And this is probably one of the most personal space exploration movies, in my opinion, at least. I think it handles space exploration in a way that's very unique. It really feels like gritty, and you feel the urgency and the stakes of this mission. Like it really hammers home how dangerous space travel actually was. And there's all this the teamwork element of getting to space. Then we have Claire Foy is incredible in this movie, as well as Ryan Gosling, of course, and Justin Hurwitz. Man, his score. This is a crime that this was overlooked by the Academy for Best Original Score last year. I can't believe that happened, and I'm still sad that this wasn't really given much attention in that regard. But it's a wonderful film. Truly, the ending really gets me every time. It's got so much to. It's very. I love the betrayal of Neil Armstrong is very introverted, but you still feel like Gosling's performance communicates everything he's feeling, his introspection so well, and there's just so much to it. I just love this movie. Don't want to go gushing about it too long, so I'm going to move on. Number 3 is Marriage Story. Again, another film that's very personal for me. I talked about this in the best of the year. I think it portrays divorce with so much authenticity. Noah Baumbach knocked it out of the park. The editing is unreal. The performances are unreal. Adam Driver truly deserves to win Best Actor for this, but that's probably not going to happen. So, yeah, again, I love this movie. It's really hit me hard in the feels, but it's also surprisingly very funny as well. So, yeah, this is just an all-around great film that really hits me in the third act as well. Speaking and continuing that trend, we have my number 2, La La Land.
Yes.
I love this movie. I think it's a crime that the Academy announced this as Best Picture, only to take that away on acting.
It was bliss for 5 minutes.
I am still hurt by that.
It was
That was
overrated for a solid 3 seconds until it became underrated.
exactly. Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are phenomenal. Like Austin said, it's got a soundtrack full of bangers. Justin Hurwitz's score is unreal. It has one of the best film endings ever. This is just so... There's so much to this. Exploring, chasing your dreams, romance. We've got, like, the ending is an all-timer, as I said. It's really emotional. It's really vibrant and full of color and life and energy, and it's just such a great musical. I love musicals, and this is just really did everything I would have possibly wanted. I've been in love with this for so long. I was just starstruck from the first teaser, and I could not wait to see this. And then once I did, I was not let down at all. So, Jacob, why don't you tell us your following picks for your next
Alrighty. Well, a few of these have already been said, especially one of them that I have. But I forgot to say my number 11, so I'm going to start with that one.
Okay.
My number 11 is Nightcrawler from 2014. I love that film so much. It's terrifying. It's mysterious. It's such a great thriller that I don't think gets talked about enough. Jake Gyllenhaal in that film is terrifying. I've never been so afraid of Jake Gyllenhaal in my entire life. But it's
That
just
mirror scene, though.
I'm sorry?
That mirror scene, though.
Oh, I know. But it's such a great film that I haven't seen in a while, but I really need to watch it again. But I genuinely love it a lot, and I think that it really doesn't get talked about enough. At number 10, I have La La Land. What can I say about this film that hasn't already been said by both Austin and David? But I also love it for the exact same reasons. Damien Chazelle is just a fantastic director. Big fan of First Man and Whiplash as well. But La La Land is really my favorite film by him. And I know I made a joke about it being overrated and then in a span of 30 seconds became underrated. But quite honestly, La La Land is just a phenomenal film in every single sense of the word. And it really blew me away when I first saw it, and it still blows me away and makes me tear up every time I watch it now. At number 9, I have Phantom Thread. I love Paul Thomas Anderson so much. This film is great. I love the score done by Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead. I love the cinematography in this film. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the script. The script and screenwriting in this film is just so great. And I can't say enough amazing things about Phantom Thread. I could go on a rant for hours about how much I just love this film. But to spare us the time, I'm going to move on to my number 8, which is a film that anyone who knows me knows how much I love this. And anyone who follows me on Twitter also knows how much I love this. But 10 Cloverfield Lane is one of the best thrillers I've seen in years. It's one of the best contained thrillers I've seen in a while. John Goodman, just such a great performance in this film. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is also fantastic. Dan Trachtenberg, for a first-time director, absolutely killed it with his debut film. This film keeps you guessing until the very end, and it's just a nonstop thrill ride from start to finish. I'll never forget the hype leading up to this film. I was more hyped for this than possibly I was for The Force Awakens. They dropped that trailer one day out of the blue. I'll never forget it. I was with a friend of mine. It was literally a January night, and we were driving down the road, and he said, "Do you ever think we're going to get a sequel to Cloverfield?" And I was like, "No, I don't think so. I think that if they did, it'd have to be done in like a different way, but like I don't know what they could do." The next day, the trailer came out, and I kid you not, my dad was like, "Hey, do you want to go see 13 Hours with me and some buddies after work?" I did not want to see 13 Hours, but I went just to see the 10 Cloverfield Lane trailer before the movie, and it was so worth it. The whole ARG and viral marketing behind it is just something that I also love, and 10 Cloverfield Lane as a film itself, just above and beyond. I can't say enough great things about that film. At number 7, I mentioned earlier that Wes Anderson film, my favorite Wes Anderson film, was on this list, a little bit higher up. Moonrise Kingdom is my favorite Wes Anderson film. And Moonrise Kingdom is just, it's so good. It explores childhood and the adventurous kind of sense of childhood imagination and wonder in a way that not many films I've seen have. And I really like all the stuff with the adults trying to find this kid as well. It's just so good. Wes Anderson absolutely killed it. And like I said, if you haven't seen it, then you're definitely missing out, because I love Moonrise Kingdom so much. So much that I could say about it. For a split second, I thought it came out in 2009 as well, so I was a little bit terrified for a second there, but it came out in 2012, so we're okay. My number 6 of the year is Call Me By Your Name. Luca Guadagnino is such a great director. He's one of my favorites working today. Armie Hammer and Timothée Chalamet in this film both just are so good. The cinematography in this film is so good. The romance feels so personal and real. The score in this film is just so good. And there's not enough positive things that I can say about this. I feel like I watched it at just the right time, and every time I watch it, I just adore it even more. Number 5. My number 5, some people could make the argument that, oh, Jacob, that's a series. That's not a film. But considering the fact that David Lynch considers Twin Peaks: The Return a movie, and it's on Letterboxd as like a 14-something hour movie, I believe, I'm going to consider it a movie. So I've always been a huge fan of Twin Peaks for the past few years, and The Return is quite possibly the best television revival in history. In my opinion, David Lynch is just a master at the weird and the bizarre and the strange, and kind of re-entering the world of Twin Peaks from the original show. It seems like a natural continuation, and the fact that he was able to come back and finish the story in such a refreshing and unique yet similar way as the original series is just so intriguing to me. Everything about this film, or the parts of the show that kind of work together in unison as one big film, is just so interesting to me, and only someone like David Lynch could pull off something that massive and weird and bizarre, and everything about it's just great. I love the cinematography throughout the show. I love the characters just as much as I did in the original series, and the new characters as well. And even the music, it's just as great as ever. So can't recommend Twin Peaks and Twin Peaks: The Return enough. My number 4 of the year is another film by Luca Guadagnino, and another film that I had to drive out of my way to see, Suspiria. I loved 2018's Suspiria. It was my favorite film of that year. I love the score. Tom York absolutely killed it with that score. The cinematography in that film was great. The performances are great. Everything about Suspiria is fantastic. There are parts in that film that make me wince. I've never winced in a theater before, but I did watching that film with my friend Carson, who convinced me to go see it with him. It was... I haven't had many theater experiences and many watch experiences in general, like with Suspiria. And I know the film is incredibly long, but it just goes by so quick. And there's not enough positive things I can say about that film as well. My number 3 of the year is actually Blade Runner 2049. Denis Villeneuve, or as many people have mispronounced his name, Denis Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve somehow made a sequel that, in some people's opinion, surpasses the original. But in a lot of ways, this film shouldn't have worked as well as it did. But somehow Denis Villeneuve found a way. And Blade Runner 2049 is one of the best sequels ever made. The score is great. Just everything about it works so well. And it feels like a natural sequel to Blade Runner, which is also one of my favorite films of all time. So it's just so interesting to me on the fundamental levels as to why this film works. And it's a film that has completely just blown me away each and every time that I've watched it. And Blade Runner 2049 is nothing short of masterwork, in my opinion.
Very quickly, very quickly. I just want to add that movie has some of the best like Foley work I've ever heard in my life. The sound mix, sound editing are out of this world, and it's just a crime that movie got shut out of the Oscars that year. Oh my god,
that's it's like you said, another 2017 movie too.
2017 was the best fucking year ever.
Okay, going 1 year back though to 2016, my number 2 of the decade is Arrival. I know it's been brought up by both of you. I love Arrival so much. Amy Adams really gives one of the best performances in her entire career, in my opinion, in that film. The score is also just so good. And there's not another kind of alien... I'm very hesitant to call it an alien invasion film because I know at its core it's not that. But there's not many films about aliens coming to Earth. There is no other film about aliens coming to Earth told in the way that Arrival is told. And there's no film that feels as human as it does when addressing these like kind of extraterrestrial kind of beings coming to our planet. So on both of those levels, I think that Arrival works. And everything about it just kind of comes together in a way that is absolutely astounding. And once again, Denis Villeneuve has crafted a film that is absolute masterwork. I know I said that about Blade Runner. I know I've said that about a lot of films on this list. And I know that I just said that about Blade Runner 2049, and I'm just now noticing that I have 2 of his films back to back. But that doesn't change the fact that how I feel about them, I have very strong personal connections to both of those films and to his films in general. And Arrival is absolutely remarkable. I love kind of the duality in the storytelling and kind of the reflection of the past and the present and how that kind of comes together. That to me is just so good. And Arrival is just a great film.
All right. So circling it back, our number 1 picks. My number 1 pick, Green Book. No, I'm just kidding. No, David, I think we should announce ours together. Since we have the same number 1s. So 3, 2, 1. Star Wars The Last Jedi. Let's go, baby. Let's fucking go. In my opinion, this is the best Star Wars movie. Empire is very close, but again, I love Ryan Johnson. I love the way this isn't just your normal Star Wars movie, and I love The Force Awakens and everything. I love the nostalgic roots that JJ started and ended with. But listen, as somebody that loves Star Wars, it's in their DNA. This is my favorite franchise. Somebody that, just like David, loves it so much. It's a franchise that needs to evolve and it needs to kind of get out of this self-contained box that it's always been in. And I love playing in that sandbox. I love Rogue One and Solo and everything. But again, I think this is the most progressive, most forward-thinking Star Wars film. Ryan Johnson crafts incredible character arcs for every single character in this movie. Obviously, at the top of that list, Luke Skywalker. I think Mark Hamill gives the performance of his career. I think it was a shame that he wasn't nominated for Best Supporting Actor that year, but he was remarkable in that movie. I can't stop gushing about this movie. I absolutely love it. I love the lightsaber. I love the lightsaber. There's not a lightsaber fight, but I love like the throne room twist. That fight between Rey and Kylo and the Praetorian Guards. I think it's visually the best Star Wars movie. Incredible cinematography from Steve Yedlin. I love the use of red in the movie, how it's like a visual kind of metaphor for like how specifically Rey is like encountering all of these battling this internal battle with the dark side at every turn. It's a cool visual that you see throughout, like the red of the throne room or the red of the dust on Crate. I just love the visual palette. I'll let David talk about it now, but it's my favorite Star Wars movie, and it's my favorite of the decade. I've seen this movie like 7 or 8 times. Just it rewards multiple viewings, and I can't say enough about it. But David, I'll let you talk about it.
So I'm not sure what's left to say that Austin didn't just say, but man, I love this movie. It's my favorite Star Wars movie. It was my favorite movie that year. It's my favorite movie of the decade. It's my favorite movie ever.
Mic drop.
I love Luke Skywalker is my favorite character in the entire saga, and what Ryan Johnson boldly decided to do with him in order to express his message about learning from failure and passing on everything you've learned to a new generation of people. And just there's so many scenes that I can point to in this movie and say that is one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars. That is one of my favorite moments in all of Star Wars. I can do that with practically every scene in this movie. Not quite, but you get my gist. And like Austin said, there's the Praetorian Guard fight in the throne room. The moment just before that where Snoke dies. Man, just experiencing this in a theater for the first time was so exciting because, like Austin said, Ryan recognized that Star Wars needed to evolve, and he took so many he made so many risky moves and took so many he made so many bold choices that were just exciting to watch because it's like you didn't know where it was going. It was so unpredictable, and it just felt so refreshing, and Star Wars felt so full of life, and I just loved so much about it. I still find new things to appreciate about it. Even with my most recent viewing just before The Rise of Skywalker, they're just little small details that I'm like, oh wow, I didn't notice that last time. And there's just so much subtext in this movie. My favorite scene will always be the spark when that's my favorite John Williams track, but that's just what I'm going to refer to that sequence as. When Luke Skywalker's force projection appears on Crate. And there's just so much in that sequence that it just means so much to me. I mean, you have Mark Hamill essentially giving like a perfect send-off to Carrie Fisher of sorts when has that moment with Leia where they're reunited for the first time since before, or well, since her son has fallen, and it's all Luke's, and Luke was responsible for that, and he's never gotten to talk about that with Leia. And that just moment is just special for so many reasons. I mean, it's great to see the two on screen, of course, but there's just like so much between them that you can really read into. And then there's like, you get the nice fan service moment when he sees C-3PO as he's walking out, and then that just him going out is unbelievably epic. Like the percussive, you just see the build of the drums, and then him just standing against the First Order, as he says earlier in the movie, "What do you expect me to walk out there with a laser sword and face down the entire First Order?" The exact thing that the audience expects, that Ryan immediately subverts, as people like to say, subverting expectations, whatever, is what Luke ends up doing to not only save the Resistance, but inspire the galaxy. And there's just so much about that I just love so much. And then you have Adam Driver up in that's his shuttle, just going insane with like so much anger coursing through him. His line delivery of "blow that piece of junk out of the sky" is just
epic every time.
Amazing. I don't want to go on for too long, of course, but there's just so much to talk about. And I'll never forget how blown away I was when it was revealed that Luke was a Force projection. And that's one of the coolest reveals I've ever seen in a cinema. And I remember like when I was just in awe, I was like, what is going on? Because clearly something's up. Like there's so much suggestion.
But the hints are there. Like when you, again, this is a movie that rewards multiple rewatches. With Luke's projection, you see Kylo's feet on the ground are leaving behind that red residue. But Luke's aren't. And the shots last long enough for on a first watch, you might not pick up on it, but on a rewatches, you start to notice it. And just very quickly, I also wanted to mention, this is my favorite John Williams score across the entire saga. I think he delivers his best work. He melds classic themes with original stuff, like The Spark is also one of the best pieces, I think. And the last thing I want to say about it is that I absolutely adore what Ryan does to expand the Star Wars universe, specifically the Force. Because up until this point, we only had a vague idea of how the Force worked. But in this sequence with how Luke trains Rey, we get an amazing visual sense of how the Force works, how it's life and death, how it lives in everything around us, and the water and the ground and everything around us. Then we get such a good sense of how the Force works, and developing new things like Force projection, and also the light speed, like the Holdo maneuver, all these different things. Just again, it builds on what we know. It expands the universe, and that is just an incredibly exciting thing. Because Star Wars needs to evolve. It's more than just the Millennium Falcon. It's more than just lightsabers. It's more than Luke and Han, and it's bigger than that. And that's what I'm excited to see from Star Wars in the future. And this was kind of just the first hints of what can be yet to come in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just gonna. I just want to rattle off a few more thoughts because
you wait, Jacob.
So he reminded me, of course, the Force Bond. Like that's so inspired and very creative. And I didn't mention Daisy Ridley, but she gives an unreal performance in this. And then, of course, there's Luke's death, which I think was handled so perfectly.
Perfect.
I love the binary sunset callback, and then. Yeah. Speaking of which, I have that hanging on my wall right in front of me.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I could go on and on, but I don't want to make this podcast go any longer than it needs to. So Jacob, you can go ahead and.
Well, first off, I just want to say that I agree with everything that you guys said. I also love it so much. It is my second favorite Star Wars film, and I absolutely adore The Last Jedi in every sense of it. I would also talk about why I love it, but like I said earlier on when I mentioned it, I don't want to like bring out this podcast way longer than it needs to be.
I
So,
hope Scorsese thinks that it's cinema.
you know what? I'm going to say it. If he doesn't, I don't care.
Yes.
It's cinema to me. So my number one, you guys are going to kill me. My number one is actually Bohemian Rhapsody.
What?
Austin, I'm not joking.
What?
Austin.
Are you serious?
Austin.
I'm
At
sorry.
the end of the day, it's a crowd pleaser with several awesome moments that really stand out. And yeah, it's got some issues, but I really think that for what it's worth, it's a really solid biopic, and I love Queen, and I really like it a lot. I'm messing with you. That's not my number one.
You had me for a minute. You fucking had me for a minute. I felt so
my
bad.
number one is actually The Lighthouse.
Okay.
I
Okay.
love Robert Eggers. It was a close tie between The Witch and this one, but I really think that I like The Lighthouse a little bit more. But no, it's definitely not Bohemian Rhapsody. If
Fuck you.
Bohemian
You had me
Rhapsody is
going.
my favorite of the decade, and I need to watch more movies. But no, I'm going to basically reiterate pretty much everything I said in the other podcast where I mentioned this one being my favorite of last year. But, The Lighthouse was my most anticipated film of 2019, and it took me a while to finally watch it and to find a way to watch it. But whenever I had the opportunity to finally see it, I wasn't disappointed at all. I think that it's a really wild, ambiguous, and bizarre descent into madness that really only Robert Eggers could pull off with such perfection, in my opinion. The cinematography and the sound design and pretty much everything else that everybody talks about when discussing this film are some of the best that I've seen all year. And both of the performances in this film from Defoe and from Pattinson are just some of the best performances of last year. I'm really mad that they got snubbed, if we're being completely honest, because I feel like they did. And at its core, I think that what really holds it all together is the script is so tight to where it really requires thought after you watch the film to kind of digest what you just saw and kind of try to think about everything that you watched in order to comprehend the main themes of the film and kind of figure out what exactly certain aspects of the film mean. And granted, there's a lot of ambiguity within the film as well, to where it's kind of like left up to interpretation, I would say, as to whether or not, this drives these people mad or this doesn't. But overall, it really is a fever dream of a film in the best possible way. And I really want to watch it again. I just got the film digitally, so I'm really excited to watch it again and experience this all over again. It's outright incredible and nothing short of masterwork in my mind. Robert Eggers is one of my favorite filmmakers today, and I'm really excited to see where he goes next. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are both two of my favorite actors working today. And the fact that all of these kind of people came together and all of my favorite, one of my favorite directors and two of my favorite actors are in a film that's kind of right up my alley with the whole black and white kind of throwback esque horror film of weirdness and ambiguity. The fact that all of this has come together really hits me on a personal level and really struck a chord with me, and I really admire it a lot. It's one of the best films of last year and easily my favorite of the decade, or at least one of them. If I end up regretting any of these choices, it'll definitely be really hard for me to regret this one, because this one really, really, really is a film that I love, and I can't recommend it enough.
All I have to say to that is, you're fond of me lobster, aren't you?
I was waiting for somebody to make the lobster joke. I was waiting for it.
Jacob, this podcast is going to follow you for the rest of your life.
I know. It's going to haunt me. Like one day I'm going to wake up in a cold sweat and think, oh no, why didn't I say that? But hey, if I didn't mention it here, I'll probably tweet about it at some point, because
I'm sure at some point I'm going to look back at my list and be like, fuck, Like I'm sure I'm gonna rearrange some stuff in my head and so on. But quick before we sign off, you have a certain impression you wanna do? You sure? I think you should do
I
it.
don't want to wake up people in my house, but you know what, Austin, for you, it's a vato. I can't do it anymore. It's too offensive and it hurts my throat. See, this is my hidden talent. I expected to reveal this in the world in a video or something, but you know what? If this is the way that it had to be done, then God willing, this is the way that it had to be done. So now everyone knows my life impression.
You know what you have to do, but you don't know if you have the strength to do it.
The rise of Watto.
Yeah, for those of you that weren't familiar, that was his impersonation of Watto from The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones fame.
The best Star Wars character, yes.
I don't know. Therm Scissor Punch? He's my bro.
Okay, but he's a close second.
Yeah.
Can Therm Scissor Punch fly? I don't think so. He does have lobster claws, though, so I mean, hey. He's
Jacob,
lobster.
Jacob, never tried lobster before.
I understood that reference.
Yeah.
Anyway, we just recorded back-to-back podcasts. I hope you guys enjoyed our top 10 of 2019, and especially our top 20 of the 2010s. Again, we're all David and Jacob and I. We all love Star Wars, but we all love film. We all love movies, and it's been a hell of a decade. And we're definitely looking forward to everything that the 2020s are going to be bringing us. So again, thank you guys for coming on here and kind of just sharing our passion in movies. We all got really excited and into the picks that we chose. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So again, Jacob, thank you for coming on again. It's a pleasure to have you. Hopefully we can do more in the future. And David, my frequent collaborator, you're the man. And this has been Austin from the Review Roundtable signing off.